Okay, hello, my name is Kirsty and I'm excited to present to you about this research I've been involved in. I'm just one of several co-authors, and we took a decade worth of banding data from the Iona Island Bird Observatory to look at Iona Island as an important refueling site to migratory songbirds. So the banding station is run by WildResearch, which is a Vancouver-based nonprofit. And I'm just touching on a few of the results. We've submitted this research for publication, so hopefully it'll be published soon. Stay tuned for that. So let's start by asking this question. What determines how long a bird stops over? It's determined by how quickly it's able to refuel and replenish its fat reserves. So on the one side, that can be determined by the individual itself, its species, sex, age, its ability to find food. So some birds are more skilled than others at finding food, and its body condition upon arrival. So if it shows up with no fat, it's going to take it longer to refuel than if it showed up with some fat. On the other side of that, we have external factors that can affect refueling rates. So the availability of fuel or food, the weather, such as temperature and precipitation, and the season, fall versus spring. And so we were interested in determining which of these factors affect mass gain and stopover duration in migratory songbirds. So here's the location of our banding station, that little red star there. It's on Iona Island, which is along the Pacific Flyway and is included in an important bird area. It's surrounded by water, the cities of Vancouver and Richmond. The Vancouver International Airport is just south of the island there. And on the island is a wastewater treatment plant. And there's a variety of different habitat types on the island itself. So we've been operating this banding station since 2010. And after 2019, we had to pause banding operations because of COVID. So we really used almost the entire data set for this project, which is really cool. We do 2 migration monitoring programs, so spring and fall, and they're 6 weeks long each. And we hire a few banders, but the majority of this work is done by many really dedicated, amazing volunteers. So when we catch a bird, we collect various data on the bird. Important to this study was mass and fat score. And then we calculated lean body mass by taking all the individuals from a species that were captured with 0 fat and calculating lean body mass. And then the mass of each individual was measured as % lean body mass against that lean body mass calculation. So with this, we were able to calculate the change in mass between the first capture and the last capture. So first capture is, of course, when we banded it. The last capture would be the last time that we recaptured it during that season. And so this allowed us to see which birds were gaining mass while at Iona. We also tested the influence of time of year and weather variables as well. So now it's time to meet the birds. So we took our top 5 most commonly captured warblers and the top 5 most commonly captured sparrows. These birds were chosen because they had high enough sample sizes of recaptures. And we say warblers and sparrows, but we could also just as easily say insectivores and omnivores, because we were interested in these 2 groups because they have slightly different diets, foraging behaviors, and life histories. So we had several predictions. I'm just going to talk about 4. Number 1, mass gain in birds would be positively associated with stopover duration. This is important because if we see that the longer a bird spends at Iona Island, the more mass it gains, it suggests that Iona Island is at the very least providing adequate stopover habitat. Number 2, long distance migrants would gain mass at higher rates than short distance migrants. And we assume this because long distance migrants are more time constrained and they're in a hurry to complete their long journey. Number 3, birds would gain mass at higher rates in the spring than the fall. We assume this because birds are in more of a hurry in the spring. There's lots of research that shows that spring migrations are generally faster than fall. And finally, number 4, temperature and precipitation would affect how quickly birds can refuel. Higher temperatures are good, precipitation is bad. What I mean by that just is that we assumed that higher temperatures would provide good feeding conditions or better feeding conditions for birds. Obviously, to a point, really high temperatures are not good either. And then we assumed that higher precipitation, especially when paired with colder temperatures, would make feeding conditions difficult and require extra energy from the birds. So results, on the left, we have our warblers. On the right, we have our sparrows. On the x-axis, we have stopover length in days. And on the y, we have mass change. And just note that the scales are different between the two. So 4 out of 5 warblers do gain mass while stopping over at Iona Island. The one that's an exception is common yellowthroat. And for the sparrows, it was only Lincoln's and golden crown that showed positive associations with stopover duration and mass gain. Fox sparrows had a weak positive association and the others did not. So overall, warblers show higher rates of mass gain than sparrows. We think this is probably because of their diet. So warblers are relying on this variable food resource, so insects. And that may have caused them to evolve higher fat deposition rates so that they can take advantage of when those resources peak before they fall again. I don't have it noted here which ones are long distance versus short distance migrants, but I'll just point out some examples. This orange line here is the yellow warbler, which is a long distance migrant and has much higher fat deposition rates or mass change than our common yellowthroat, which is a short distance migrant. So overall, long distance migrants did show higher rates of mass gain than our short distance migrants, which fit our predictions. So next we're looking at our spring versus fall comparison. I'm just showing you the warblers here. So note that the one on the left is the same graph from the previous slide, but now on the right we have warblers in the fall. And note again that the scales now are different for both X and Y axes. So most species that showed a strong positive relationship between stopover and mass change in the spring, we're seeing the same relationship in the fall. The one notable difference is yellow-rumped warblers. They seem to gain mass while stopping over at Iona Island in the spring, but not in the fall. Overall, the rates of mass gain tend to be smaller in the fall, and the stopover durations are longer in the fall. So all of this fits with our predictions. The final results I want to share are related to temperature and precipitation. So now on the y-axis, we have fuel deposition rates, so how quickly birds can refuel. As we predicted, we see that rates of mass gain increase with increasing temperature, but decrease with increasing precipitation. Interestingly, but not really surprisingly, both of these relationships are stronger for warblers than they are for sparrows. Again, we think this is probably because warblers have that more specialized diet. They're insectivores. Sparrows have a more generalist diet. So when conditions are poor for insects, sparrows can just switch to other foods, but warblers can't. And so I'll just wrap it up by asking this question: why are these results important? We found that how quickly birds refuel and how long they stop over for is greater in long distance migrants, insectivorous warblers, and spring migrants, and that environmental factors influence refueling rates, especially in insectivores. And so all of this highlights how important it is to conserve high quality stopover habitat, especially for long distance birds and insectivorous species such as warblers. And it also suggests that climate change and other human-caused changes will likely influence stopover dynamics, especially if they cause changes to temperature and precipitation. So the main takeaway I want to leave you with is just that long-term migration monitoring and bird banding and the huge data sets that they create allow us to answer important questions about bird biology and conservation-related questions. And so with that, I just want to say thank you to all the supporters who have supported Iona Island Bird Observatory for many years. And thank you so much to the amazing volunteers who helped us collect these data. And I'll just leave this slide up there with our contact info. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And with that, I'll just say thank you so much for letting me share these results with you.